Hello friends, in this video we are going to talk about arrays in Java. So before we start using arrays in our program, I want to first take some time to explain what an array is. An array in simple terms is simply a variable, a sort of variable which can be used to store multiple values at a time. By multiple values I mean more than one value. Let's say if we have a regular variable of type string which is called fruit, and this variable is going to store the name of a given fruit. For example, let's say mango. This is a variable which stores the value mango. Now what if I wanted to store maybe the names of different fruits within this same variable? Instead of just mango, I could want to store maybe mango and let's say apple. Now this isn't correct to do this because a variable by default can store just one value, but we can accomplish this using an array. So we are going to declare an array and then we assign multiple values to that given array as we want. So now that you already have a small understanding of what an array is, let's see how to actually use it in our program. The first thing to do when we want to use an array is to import the array class, which is an inbuilt class in the Java programming language. I will do that using my import statement by writing import java.util and then .arrays. Take note it has an S at the end. So this imports the array class, which contains various methods for working with arrays in Java. Without it, you can't use arrays in your program. Now let's see how to declare an array. To declare an array, you start by writing the data type of the array elements, because in Java, arrays store elements of the same data type only. So I want to declare an array that is going to store the names of multiple fruits. So the type is going to be string. And then after the data type, I'm going to write a set of square brackets. This indicates that this variable is going to be an array instead of just a regular variable. And then I will write the array name, which is fruit, with S, because I want to store multiple fruits. Now this is the array declaration. Let's now see how to initialize the array. To initialize the array, I will simply write the new keyword and then followed by the array data type, which is sealed string, followed by a set of square brackets again. But this time around, I'm going to write a value within the square brackets, and this value is simply going to represent the size of the array. For the sake of this example, I will give the size of my array to be 3, and then after that I will end my line with a semicolon. So the size of the array simply indicates the number of elements or values which are going to be stored within this given array. Now let's look at how to assign values to array indexes. An array index is simply a position within the array. So since we have an array of size 3, it means there are 3 positions where we can store elements within this array, and these positions are simply called indexes. By default, indexes always begin at 0. That means the first index is going to be 0, the second index will be 1, and the third index will be 2, and so on if you had an array of size more than 3. So a simple formula for knowing the last index of an array is simply by taking the size of the array and subtracting 1 from it, because when we start counting from 0, the last index is never going to be exactly the size of the array, because we don't start counting at 1 but rather at 0. Now let's see how to assign values to this array. We are going to assign the array values using the indexes, and to do that, let's say if I want to assign a value to the first index of the array, which is index 0, I will simply write the array name fruit and then followed by a set of square brackets. Within the square brackets now, I will specify the index at which I want to add the given value, which is index 0, meaning that the value which I'm going to assign is going to be the first value in the array, and then I'm going to assign it the value of apple. So apple is the first value in our array. Let's add other values at the other indexes. So at index 1, which is the second value in the array, I will give the value mango, and the third value is going to be at index 2, which will be banana. So these are my different array elements. Let's now see how we can display this array or the array values in our console. Now, if you want to display the array, an easy way of doing that is using the arrays.toString method, which is a method provided by the arrays class that enables us to display the elements of an array at once as a contiguous block. So to do that, I will write the arrays, which is the name of the arrays class in Java, and then .toString. ToString is a method provided by this array class, followed by a set of parentheses. Within the parentheses now, I will write the name of the array which I want to display, which is going to be my fruit array and a semicolon at the end. Remember that. Now let's save this and we will run our program to see our array being displayed. Okay, we see our array is displayed as a contiguous block as I was talking about. We have apple, mango, and banana. These are the various elements which we stored in the array. Now let's see how we can use a loop with an array. We are going to use a for loop specifically because this is the best type of loop for working with arrays. And after that, I'm going to show you how to use the augmented for loop, which we do not see in the section about loops because I wanted to keep it for this particular section since the augmented for loop is designed specifically for working with collections such as arrays and other collections provided in Java. So I will comment out this line. Now let's see how to use a for loop to display the array elements. The advantage of using a loop with an array is that you can do many other things instead of just printing the array elements, because as you can see, we can use this toString method and it already does a good job at printing the elements. Even though what we are going to do is simply printing the elements of the array, with a loop you can do many other things. So I have initialized my loop to start when I is equal to 0, and it is going to run so long as I is less than 3. That means when I becomes equal to 3, the loop is going to stop execution. And the reason I am doing that is because our array is of size 3 and there are only 3 elements within the array. So it is going to run when I is equal to 0. In the second iteration, I will be 1, and in the third iteration, I will be 2. All the 3 elements of the array will be displayed already. In the fourth iteration now, I is supposed to be 3, but the loop is not going to continue execution at that point because of our condition we have precise here, I less than 3, meaning the loop should run so long as I is less than 3 only. Now I am going to write the body of the loop, which is simply going to be a simple print method printing the different elements of the array. So what we are going to do is we will write the array name, which is fruit, followed by the square bracket still, and then within the square bracket we are supposed to specify the index which we want to display. But since this is within a for loop and the for loop has this variable I which is going to be changing values at every iteration, we can simply use this to access the given element at a given index at every iteration of the array. So I'm simply going to put I. In the first iteration, I is equal to 0, meaning that the value of I is 0. And when we say fruit of I, it means this is equivalent to saying fruit of 0. And we know that fruit of 0 is apple. So the value apple is going to be what is represented by this whole statement. And that applies for all the other indexes and values within our fruit array. Now let's save this and we are going to check the output. We see the various array elements as displayed one by one this time around: apple, mango, and then banana. Now let's also see how to use an augmented for loop instead of a regular for loop. So what is going to change is going to be this first line of the loop. So when using the augmented for loop, what we are going to do is, since the array is of type string, I'm going to declare string variable, which is going to be string. I can name this anything, which is, I will just put X for the moment, and then I will put a colon. After the colon, I will write the array name, fruit. So what this means is we are simply saying for string X in fruit. So you can simply read this as in, meaning that we are declaring this variable X, which is going to contain the value of all the different elements within the fruit array one by one at every iteration. That means in the first iteration, it is going to contain the value of the first element in the fruit array, which is apple. Whereas in the second iteration, it will be mango, and the third iteration, it is going to be banana. So this is already set by default to loop through the array one element after the other every iteration. And you can see that when using this type of loop, you don't even need to know the size of the array, because when you just say for X in fruit, it is going to automatically know that it is supposed to loop through the whole array from start to finish. So here we don't need to specify any exit condition for our loop. And then what you need to note is that this variable X which you declare here is supposed to be of the same data type as the array, because it is going to be storing the values of the array. In order to do that, the data types must be the same. For example, we cannot make this an integer because an integer cannot store string values, since we know that this variable is supposed to store the different values of this array at some point. So this is supposed to be a string, or whatever the data type of the array is. We can give this any name so long as it follows the rules for naming variables in Java. And I would prefer to give it a more descriptive name like fruit, this time around without the S, to specify that it's a single fruit, so that it should make more sense to say for fruit in fruits instead of just giving a random name like X. And then now to display the elements, we don't need to specify the index, because here we are not using indexes with the augmented for loop. So I will cancel all of this. And then I will simply write the name of this variable fruit, since we already know that it is what is going to be storing the values of the different array indexes. I will just write it here, fruit. So at each iteration, fruit is going to store a given value of the fruit array, one after the other. And then at each of these iterations, we are simply going to display the value of this fruit below here. Now let's save this again and check our result. And we see that we still get the same result: apple, mango, and banana. Now what I want to show is how we can declare an array and initialize the array values at the time of its declaration at once, instead of first declaring the array and then assigning its values afterwards. So in order to achieve that, I'm going to modify our program a little. Now we are going to declare our array, which is going to be the same array of fruits. The type is still going to be string, and then fruits. Oh, and then I must not forget the square brackets here. They are still necessary. Now I will set this equal to, instead of saying new string and then specifying the size of the array again, I'm going to simply write the elements which I want to store within the array at once. And to do that, I will write a set of curly braces. Within the curly braces, I will immediately write my array elements, which are going to each be separated by a comma. So since they are strings, I will write them within double quotes. The first fruit is going to be apple, comma. I will write the second one, which is mango, comma. And then the third one, which is going to be banana. And then here, since we have not specified any size for this array, I can even add a fourth one. And the fourth fruit I'm going to add will be watermelon. I hope that's how it is spelled. I don't know. And then I will put my comma at the end. So this is an array. This time around, our array is of size 4, which means it has 4 different values. The size of the array cannot be modified after it has already been declared and initialized. So here, when we have an array of 4 elements like this, it is not possible to modify the size of this array laterwards, but we can only modify the values within the given array indexes. So I can still come here, and then let's say if I want to change the last value watermelon, I'm going to change it, and I will specify array of the index of the last element is going to be 3, since the array is of size 4. And then I will set this equal to a new value. The value I'm going to give here is going to be, let me say, lemon. So even when you assign the array values at the time of its declaration, you can still decide to modify an individual value afterwards. Now let's save this and run our program again. Okay, we see all our array elements displayed: apple, mango, banana, and lemon. Perfect. So guys, that is how to use arrays in Java.